Hey everyone, Greg here, and thank you for downloading the latest episode of the DDT Archives, where Chris and I will cover In Your House number 7, Good Friends, Better Enemies from April of 1996. Just a few notes before we kick this one off. After we had recorded this episode, we've launched our newest format titled the Indie Lounge, which showcases the best and brightest of the independent wrestling scene from around the country. Already available on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube are our interviews with the man under par, Dale Springs, out of Elevate Pro in Louisiana, as well as Steve Wilson, the man behind Congo Kong, formerly of Impact Wrestling. Those were both great interviews and a lot of fun to do, and they are available now to download. Coming up this week will be 2 other interviews we conducted. That'd be with Brian Blade and Johnny Cove, so look out for those when they drop later on in the week. Until then, you can follow us on Twitter at DDT Archives, and you can follow Chris on Twitter at Chris_DDTHSLB. You can check out our Facebook page, DDT Archives. As I mentioned before, we are available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever podcasts are available. And check out our website, highspotslowblows.com. But until then, please enjoy In Your House number 7, Good Friends, Better Enemies. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the DDT Archives. I am Greg. With me as always is my partner in crime, Chris. What's up, bro?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. Excited to be back on the air with everybody, talking about the very best in old school wrestling and classic wrestling. How's your week been, man? All right?
Getting a little busier.
Yeah, we'll get into more of that later, maybe. But just letting you guys know, big things are on the horizon for us. We're just trying to do what we do here and talk about the classics, but also opening up our options and making new friends along the way. And we're going to hopefully have some guests coming very soon, if not already by the time this airs. But, yeah, right. You've been working the Twitter pipeline, haven't you?
Just a little bit, man. You
Yeah.
got to spread the brand.
Spread the brand, grow the brand. So we're really excited about that. More on that to come. Hopefully by the time this gets out there, we've had started already. But it doesn't matter. But today, we are talking about the 1996 In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies that came to you April 28th, 1996. And this was a really interesting show to me, and I just kind of picked it at random. But it was like an onion. The more you peeled it back, the more there was to this show. So what were your preconceived notions going into this one?
Obviously the fact that, Razor and Diesel were leaving. And 95, 96 is not the heyday for the WWF. They're kind of in that funk still, trying to figure it out. It's a lot of big time character based guys that are on the TV channels. However, you don't see that on the pay-per-view. You have a really solid card up and down, all things considered. And the In Your Houses were always fun because they weren't 3 hours. So it was a 2-hour show with the half-hour free-for-all, and you got good wrestling. Nothing was crazy long matches. The stories were short and sweet and to the point, and they usually built up to something bigger later.
Yeah, and the thing is, I watched all of the Raws leading up to this one because this is the first pay-per-view coming off of WrestleMania 12. So I watched all the Raws. There was only 4 Raws in between, and all the stories that they featured on Raw. And back then, Raw was an hour, so these are like 45 minutes on the network. So to fly through those, and basically every major storyline that they had on Raw were matches on the pay-per-view, with the exception of one, which they were leading to, and we'll get to that in a minute. But this was a changing time for WWE. This was a transition, if you will. Shawn Michaels wins the title at WrestleMania 12 in the classic Iron Man match, the 60-minute match with Bret Hart. Bret's gone. He's on hiatus. He's not coming back until Survivor Series later that year in November. We're only at the end of April here. As you said before, Razor Ramon and Diesel are leaving. So it's very much a transitional time, and they're trying to build new stars and find some new faces. But when you look at this card, they're relying on the guys that have done it for them in the past. Am I right?
Yeah, they're definitely trying to. You know, you see Owen Davey. They're giving Vader an opportunity. You know, it's a very different WWF than what we've been talking about recently. And the card itself will play out. It's a fun show, and yeah.
It is a fun show, and just to kind of set the stage here, so this night after WrestleMania, Mankind debuts. It's his first match in the WWF. So Mick Foley's now here, and he picks a fight with The Undertaker, and that sets up their match at SummerSlam moving forward. You have Mark Merrow debuting the night after WrestleMania, and he starts a feud right away with Triple H, whose valet for WrestleMania 12 was Sable, and her WWF debut. So there's just a lot going on here, and it's so cool to see it. And the other footnote I wanted to add is 2 weeks before this pay-per-view is Brian Pillman has his car accident where he crashed his Hummer and destroyed his foot or ankle or whatever it was. And that's in the time where he's all over the place. He's just leaving WCW. He's in ECW. He's about to sign with WWF, and then the accident happens. Do you remember that when that happened?
I do. He was just in the middle of transforming his character and just taking it to a whole nother level. And this just absolutely couldn't have happened at a worse possible time.
He was basically the hottest free agent on the market right then.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, his character was so edgy as he left WCW, and then he goes into ECW, and listen, it's legendary. The dude threatened to pee in the middle of the ECW ring. I mean, that was shocking even for ECW.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So you ready to dive into this pay-per-view, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we are live from the Omaha Civic Auditorium in Omaha, Nebraska. Ever been to Omaha?
I have not been to Omaha.
Me either. There goes that. All right, so our first match of the night will be the British Bulldog and Owen Hart versus Jake the Snake Roberts and Ahmed Johnson. This is a semi-rematch from WrestleMania 12. There was a six-man at that show where Bulldog, Owen, and Vader, all part of Camp Cornette, faced off against Jake, Ahmed, and Yokozuna. So the lead into this, on the April 8th episode of Raw, the Bulldog and Ahmed Johnson had an arm wrestling match. And I know we talked about the arm wrestling match in our Starrcade episode a couple weeks ago. Excuse me. And there's another one here, and I thought that was hilarious, just how recently I watched one. And Owen Hart is brilliant in this because he keeps stopping it and arguing with the referee, then eventually gets kicked out. And there's a segment here where Ahmed flips out and attacks Bulldog and sets up a table, dude. And it's just, when everyone jokes around about Ahmed Johnson, he sets the table up in the corner and he throws Bulldog in it like 3 times and the table doesn't break. So either it wasn't gimmicked or Ahmed just had no idea what he was doing. And then he just throws the table on top of Davey Boy in the middle of the ring. It is hilarious. You have to check that out.
I mean, it's typical Ahmed Johnson.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. So then what sets up this match is they show footage from their Germany tour, and it's a match between Owen and Jake, and Bulldog interferes, beats down Jake. Jake sicks his snake on British Bulldog, and that typically sets up the match. So I guess this was supposed to be a singles match because they only announced Bulldog to the ring. But it's changed to a tag match because apparently Davey Boy has a injured knee and he just wasn't healthy enough for a singles. So they make it a tag and with Owen and Ahmed Johnson joining up with Jake Roberts. So what were your thoughts on this match, man?
So I want to take a step back before even the match. Cornette sells like a champ when that snake comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Before the match. He just, I mean, you would have thought he saw a ghost and that ghost slapped him upside the head. I mean, he was done. Like, I think he was more alive when he fell off the scaffold back in the day, which was great. You know, it shows that Jake has that intimidation factor. You know, them using Clarence Mason to say that the snake cannot be at ringside, that it's banned from ringside. And then all of a sudden Jake comes back with Ahmed Johnson, who looks like $1 million, but can't work much at all, which is sad because he had everything else physically that you would need to be a star for WWF at that time. You know, but he wasn't good. I hate to say it, like it's not my place to tell someone they're not a good worker, but he really was not a good worker.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to watch. I'm with you there. You know, but you know the match itself wasn't bad. I think Jake plays that part. He just meant business coming out to the ring, with that just death glare, and he plays that great part of the old veteran who just got his ass beat so well. And you know, then you're just waiting for the hot tag to come in and Ahmed to come in and clean house, and he eventually did that. But I mean, there's a couple of times where he comes in and he's tossing people around, you wince, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's just, you know, it is, like you said, it's hard to watch. So, you know, the finish came when Bulldog grabbed Cornette's tennis racket, hitting Jake in the knee with it. The ref got distracted by Owen and Ahmed fighting outside the ring, and Bulldog puts Jake in a leg lock and Jake taps for the win. Excuse me. So what are your ultimate thoughts on this match?
So I want to pose a question to you because I kind of have an idea of what I think on this. Where do you put Owen and Davey as a tag team and the greatest tag teams of all time?
I wouldn't put them near the top. I mean, they're great to look at. Maybe top 20, top 25.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking between 20 and 25. They have ridiculously good chemistry together. You know, nowhere near as good as like the Hart Foundation or the British Bulldogs were, but at the same time, for that time, I thought they were a real solid tag team.
Because their styles complemented each other. Bulldog was the power guy. Owen was the speed guy, technical, can fly a little bit. So anytime you have that complement of styles, it usually makes into a good tag team.
Oh, without a doubt. It's definitely you could get, you know, the Weasley heel in Owen and the strong dominant force in Davey, and all of a sudden they're real good. And they had a nice run for a little while in the WWF.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they are a very good tag team, and especially when we're talking about such a transitional period in the company, they were one of those good mainstays of marketable, good performers that could get you a good match out of anybody. Hey, they got a good match out of an aging Jake Roberts and how do you want it? Whatever superlative you want to put in front of Ahmed Johnson. I don't want to be too mean, but you know, into a less than formidable Ahmed Johnson. Is that maybe that's the way to put it?
He looks formidable. He's less than stellar.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the next match. This is not even a match, really. We got Goldust and Ultimate Warrior for the Intercontinental Championship. The Warrior had returned at WrestleMania 12 and defeated Triple H. He had an in-ring interview on the April 8th episode of Raw to Vince and got just a huge ovation. Got a huge ovation at WrestleMania. Got a huge ovation on this show, too. Goldust comes out because apparently they have a match already scheduled at this In Your House. And in between, Goldust had this side feud with Savio Vega over the Intercontinental title where they had this wonky match and then a rematch the week after because the title was held up. And then Austin would interfere, causing Savio Vega to lose it back to Goldust, and he retained the IC title. But when he comes out, Goldust has his knee wrapped, and this happened on the Germany tour the week before. He had, and all signs pointed to that, he had a torn ACL or MCL, excuse me. And it's just you're kind of thinking like this isn't a match at all. It's basically posturing and then a count out just because Goldust is hurt. But when you think about all the talent you had on the bench in this show, I'm getting a little inside here, and obviously we don't know. We're just speculating. But don't you think if his injury was that serious, they could have just inserted somebody else into this match and had Warrior squash them or do something else in here? Because when I get to the dark matches, you're going to wonder why this was even on the show, right?
So I actually had this written down. There was no way that they are putting the Intercontinental title back on the Ultimate Warrior. There is no shot. You know this from the jump. So therefore, there won't be a clean win either way, because you also know that there is absolutely no shot that the Ultimate Warrior takes the job to Goldust. They bring out the bouncer guy, security guy, to take the bigger bumps. I always wonder with Warrior, and look, 10-year-old me loved the Ultimate Warrior. So when I say stuff now, 10-year-old me would cry. But the reality is, from everything you've ever heard about the guy, he doesn't play ball. So going in and watching this, I didn't remember if the injury was real or not, but it served no purpose other than to take up 5 to 10 minutes of the show. And there were a lot of really solid guys that are sitting on the sidelines. Obviously he's not going in with Triple H again. He absolutely buried him at Mania. But there are other people that you could have put him in there with. And I think they missed the boat if it was an injury thing. But I also, I don't know how much Vince really trusted the Warrior in doing anything either.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, going back to what you were saying about 10-year-old you, it's just like the ovation he gets coming in is staggering. And it just shows you that, like, in the age of the dirt sheets and the behind-the-scenes access and the proverbial quote-unquote smart fan, how, like, Grizzly have sucked the joy out of wrestling for a long time. The people in that arena did not care about any of that. They loved that character. They were excited to see him. They didn't overthink it. Nobody was worried about work rate or fantasy booking. They were just having a good time and cheering for a character that they loved. And I thought that was kind of an adorable innocence when it came to the crowd that night. But like you said, you don't know what the deal was or if they tried to do that. But this is, when you think about it, all those Raws leading up to this were taped in the same arena after WrestleMania. So they had a month's worth of shows before they went overseas. And when they came back, they had this angle and they kind of had, worked themselves into a corner to put this match on. So like you said, you never know, who, what they could have done or if they could do anything other than just have him go out, have the Warrior, do his shtick, battle the bodyguard, knock Goldust over. Goldust, is gone for a month after this because of that knee injury. And, hey, you pop the crowd, you get a strong ovation. It's obviously a non-match, but, and then you move on. Any other thoughts on what's up?
In a short pay-per-view, I don't think it was a necessary. Like in a 3-hour show, I get doing this.
Yeah.
In a show that's less than 2 hours, it wasn't necessary. You could have put something else in there and given the fans something a little bit more. But at the same time, the fans clearly wanted to see the Warrior. And I think that's the thing back then when people were more, I don't want to say into wrestling, but they were into wrestling to be legitimate fans, not to be fantasy booker or, to pretend that they have a bigger role in the business than they do. And at the end of the day, we're just fans that enjoy the product. We also are realistic. Not everything's going to hit a home run. Sometimes you strike out, and that's okay. You need it a little bit, but clearly the crowd wants to love the Warrior. In a period of time with the transition, Vince needed the Warrior. I mean, you're losing Bret Hart till November. You got Goldust on the shelf now. You need the Warrior to do something. Unfortunately, he doesn't keep to what he needs to do, and it's going to be another letdown.
So I think now's a good time to, since we're covering this, is to talk about what the dark matches were for the show. And 3 of these matches were after the main event, which is kind of surprising. And so, but they did that kind of stuff back then. But think about this. So there's the free-for-all match, which was on, I guess, Preview Guide or whatever the hell that they used for that back in the day. I don't remember. Was it Preview Guide or like the TV Guide channel or whatever?
No, it was actually on pay-per-view for free.
Oh, okay. So it was on the channel the show was on, and then it would cut out if you didn't buy it.
Correct.
All right. So the free-for-all match that night was 1-2-3 Kid versus Mark Merrow. Of course, Triple H comes in and interferes, and it sets up him against Merrow for the next In Your House. So then you got the 3 other dark matches that night were Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Savio Vega, Triple H versus Mark Merrow. So they did have a match later that night, and then Undertaker versus Mankind. You think about the talent that is in the 3 dark matches on this show. It's staggering. And so I did the math. That's 30 world titles and 15 WrestleMania main events in the dark matches on the show.
It's also 6 Hall of Famers.
Yeah. Like it's nuts. So it's so crazy when you think about it that like even though you think about it's a downtime in the industry and we're still 2.5 months away from the NWO and all this stuff, and it's like, oh my God, this is your dark matches? That's crazy. The Undertaker Mankind match is out there somewhere. It was on like an Unseen Attitude Era DVD somewhere. I haven't looked on the network to see if it's like in a hidden gem or anything. So I guess they were kind of working out their feud moving forward. So the next match on the night, it's a bittersweet affair. And you would see Vader take on Razor Ramon. So Vader is on a tear right now. He had injured Gorilla Monsoon a month before. On the April 8th episode of Raw, he injured Yokozuna's leg, which was to get Yoko off TV so he could go to lose weight, and they carried him off on a forklift, and it was just terrible to watch. Do you remember that?
I do.
It's hard. Sad. It's very sad, especially when you think about, the ultimate thing, and it ended his life. And then the next week on Raw, Vader and Jim Cornette come down, and Vince announces that Vader's going to face Razor Ramon in Your House. And I suggest on this April 15th, 1996 episode of Raw, you just watch that segment and see the promo that Cornette cuts on Razor. And because he details like that path of destruction that Vader has laid, and then looking back 24 years on that promo, when knowing what we know now, he says he looks dead in the camera and says to Razor that he's made bad career choices, and by signing a contract, and he pauses, and then he says to face Vader at the pay-per-view, and it's like he sees this crystal ball, and it's the end of Razor Ramon. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on, and maybe a lot of people who didn't read the dirt sheets didn't know what was going on, but you probably wouldn't think twice about it when you saw it. But knowing what we know now, it's a really honest interview and promo with a lot of inside baseball, going through it. So have you seen that promo? by any chance?
I did see the promo. It tipped the hand a little bit, but again, at that time, we were 14, 15 years old
Yeah.
or 15 years old. There's, I didn't know who Dave Meltzer was. I didn't know that there was a newsletter, let alone an Observer or whatever. Uh, until Razor showed up at WCW, I had no clue. Um, and part of me misses those days. There's something really cool about being surprised. Uh, it's part of the business that makes things fun. Like not expecting something and then all of a sudden you get like this awesome gift. Um, and who knows with everything going on, hopefully we can return a little bit to that because it just makes it that much more fun. Um, Vader, talk about a guy that just didn't put it together in the WWF. Like he should have been a monster. And I know there were injuries. I know there was some trouble with the shoulder when he came over from WCW. But at the same time, like, he just never became that powerhouse. And you saw kind of hints that it could be, but he never got it all together. And it's kind of sad because you go back to his WCW days, the dude could go. He was a
Dominant.
stud athlete.
Absolutely dominant.
He was a big guy that could work and could go, but injuries caught up, and eventually he's not, I don't want to say he's a shell of himself, but he didn't make the impact that I anticipated that he would, even at 15.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like this match is really good.
Oh, absolutely. It was
really
great.
Good. And it's just you take for granted Scott Hall's size, especially when he got to WCW and he was standing next to Kevin Nash all the time and Hogan, and he was among those guys. But you always kind of took for granted how big he is and how tall he is. And when he's standing toe to toe with Vader, it didn't look as it made Vader not look as imposing as he normally would. And, whether Vader had a match with Shawn Michaels or whatever, because Hall stood right there with him, right? Am I right?
Yeah, he did. Some of the things that really stood out for me with this match was, obviously the WWF has to put Vader over, but at the same time, I think they did Razor a favor and they let him go out strong. I don't think today that would happen. I really think they would try to slap him with a funny gimmick and try to get him out as low as possible. But here, I thought they let him leave with some strength in his character still.
Yeah, some dignity. Yeah. No, absolutely. It really was a good situation for him to go out on, and obviously this is his last television appearance, and it's not his last match. Obviously, his last match would be on May 19th that year at Madison Square Garden with the infamous curtain call incident, and it's almost a month to the day. He would debut on Nitro. He debuted on May 27th, so it's right there. Like such a 96 is such a crazy year. When you look back on it, of how much happened and the transitions that went on and everything, and obviously when you got to 97, it's one of the best years ever in the history of the business. But 96 was that stepping stone, and it definitely showed here. A lot of back and forth action in this match. Razor almost got him up in the Razor's Edge, couldn't hold him up. There's a great spot where Vader's in the corner on the turnbuckle, and Razor gets him up on his shoulders and backdrops him. I thought the ring was going to collapse on that one, right?
Yeah.
So then the finish came when Vader reversed the Razor's Edge attempt and kind of dropped his ass on Razor's chest and got the pin for the 1-2-3. So what were your overall critiques of this match? I thought it was a really solid one.
I thought it was a good match. Again, I thought it was very dignified of Vince to allow Razor to go out as strong as he did. I thought there was clearly chemistry in the ring between Vader and Razor, And here's the thing I'll say. It didn't look like Razor was trying to phone it in at all. He wanted to put on a great show still for the fans. And that's something that you don't always get from people. Anytime somebody's trying to leave a job, and I'm not just talking in the wrestling business. If I know I'm taking another job, am I really giving everything I have to the one that I'm currently with until my 14-day window or my 30-day window's up? If you're a professional, yeah, you do, but not everybody is like that. And I thought he did a really good job of making sure that he went out with class and dignity, and you can't ask for much more than that.
No, I agree with you. And as a in a leadership role in my job and a manager of other people, I hate the 2 weeks, like the 2 weeks notice. I can't stand it. I get it, but I mean, it's just like you have somebody there that for 2 weeks doesn't want to even be there. I had a situation like that recently, and it's like we had to let him go before his 2 weeks were up because his performance was just garbage, and he was hindering the operation. And it's like, well, you're going to go anyway. Might as well go now because it's just you have that. So, yeah, no, it's a great point you make. But it definitely was not the case in this match at all. In post-match, we have Michael Hayes, Doc Hendrick, whatever, talks to Cornette and Vader, telling him he's got to face Yokozuna at the next In Your House, which is, Cornette freaks out, and it's great. Then there's a nice little segment. I love when they do this. They had the people on the AOL chat room, and it was The Undertaker hilariously standing behind everybody in purple glow light, and Paul Bearer interviewing with the nice lady who's in the AOL chat room. I thought it was hilarious. Did you catch that?
I did, man. It brought back memories. What are your biggest memories of AOL chat rooms, Greg?
I'd rather not share them.
Oh, come on, man.
What? I was a 16M looking for a 16F.
You're a lurker, huh?
I was not a lurker. I don't lurk.
Man. Just for the record, if any of our listeners ever want to hear some funny stories, you got to get us a few drinks deep and ask us about our online dating history, because man, I think I was the initial ruler of the world on that one. Oh yeah. Man, we got some goodies.
Whatever, catfish.
I never catfished. I just didn't send a picture. I did get catfished a couple times.
All right.
It was like Indiana Jones running through the Nanuet Mall.
That's a story for another day. So then we get this advertisement and for their new sports shirts, and they're selling like Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, and Ultimate Warrior polo shirts and hats, and I wanted one of those polo shirts, man. So bad. I wish the number was not defunct. I would have ordered one anyway.
Oh, you're talking now you wanted it. I thought then you wanted it.
No, I want it now.
I looked at it, and I all I kept thinking was like, I've seen people at car washes with better attire.
Yeah, those hats were from hunger.
Yeah, dude, our Little League hats from 1986 were better.
Oh, with the mesh on the back? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
8 feet tall.
Hats.
Ugh, terrible.
I still can't understand why the Angels were yellow.
Well, they're golden halos.
I guess, but they were yellow. They weren't gold.
Whatever. It's the color that was available. You had like 6 colors for Little League teams, man. Don't look too much into it. It's okay. All right, so our next match is the tag team title match, and it's the Body Donnas, Skip and Zip, along with the lovely Sonny, against the Godwins, Henry and Phineas, and their manager, Hillbilly Jim. This is another solid match. The Body Donnas had won the tag titles from the Godwins at the WrestleMania 12 free-for-all. And then on the Raw the next night, it was announced that these two teams would face off in a rematch here at In Your House. So on the go-home episode of Raw, before this pay-per-view, the Body Donnas did a run-in and attacked the Godwins after the match with a young Tajiri and some other guy whose name I can't remember. But a young Tajiri in WWE in 1996 was a sight, man. He got a couple of good spots in it. It was pretty interesting to see him. Do you remember that at all?
I don't.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
he was in trunks and very, very young. He was doing some flips in there. It was good. He had a good showing for a squash match. But this was an average match to good. I think these two teams definitely fought a lot and had some chemistry. And so, what were your thoughts about it?
So I think these are two of the under heralded tag teams of the 90s. I don't necessarily think they're up with the absolute best of them, but they're two fairly good tag teams with terrible gimmicks. Um, like the Godwins, you put them in a little bit different of characters, and I don't mean like a Southern Justice character like they tried to do later with them, but just if they had a little bit different of a gimmick so that they're not really a joke, I think they had potential. I mean, Dennis Knight and um, who's would eventually go on to be Midian and Naked Midian, and again things that I wish I didn't remember. Um, was talented, and um, you know Henry Godwin was Tex Schlesinger in WCW, and I don't know how many people remember that, but he put on some good matches there. Um, and then Skip and Zip. I mean, Dr. Tom is Dr. Tom, and then you have Chris Candido, who was just a stud, just another guy that you kind of wished had fully reached his potential. And you know, look, love will make you do some crazy things, but you have to wonder if Sonny got in the way of what he really truly could have been in terms of a wrestler.
Yeah, it was great. And you think about just those two guys. Candido was tremendously athletic and to just an unlimited amount of potential, like you said. And then there's Dr. Tom, who trained some of the greats that have ever come into the ring. And there's got to be that level of ring awareness and talent that goes into that, and you can't really describe it. But Candido did this standing Hurricane Rana on Phineas, like he did like the Frankensteiner. Like, how did he get up there?
I,
Like,
it's crazy.
it's crazy. Like, you just think about it. Like, oh my god, there's just no. You just can't fathom the amount of athleticism that went into that. And so the finish came when Phineas got distracted. Sonny gave him an autographed picture of herself, which would distract any of us 15-year-old us for sure, causing a ruckus outside the ring. And then the Body Donnas used twin magic. The referee's distracted, and they switch it up, and Zip gets the roll up and the pin and to retain the tag titles. So, honestly, it's an average to above average match, but just like we said, just a ton of talent for those mid '90s years, where these guys in the downtime in like a down period in the business before things started to heat up, 3, 6, 9 months later, that kind of got lost in the mix before business really took off. And I think it's unfortunate because like we both said, there's a lot of talent in that ring.
Yep. I mean, I think we hammered that idea home. I love the idea of using twin magic. I think it's one of those things that, it never gets old. You think back at some of the great ones, like Angle's brother pretending to be Angle, things like that, that just, I mean, it's a great move to carry on a feud, uh, which I don't necessarily think that being done a great way in the WWE today. Uh, I think there's the give me what I want attitude from fans, and therefore the WWE doesn't put a lot of stringing things together. I think sometimes they try, but nobody really has the patience to see things through, and so something like this would get lost in the shuffle. But I hope again at some point when we get back to more traditional wrestling that we're having a situation where stories can truly be told in the ring, and feuds can be built up over time instead of wrestle promo, wrestle at a pay-per-view, even though you've seen it 3 out of the last 4 weeks.
Because really, what's the hurry? Where are they going? They like if anything now, especially when you have so much content strewn across so many days, and when you have, Twitter can be used as a vehicle, and it is from time to time. When you have the social media to back that up, yeah, it can get oversaturated. But if you do it right and you can manipulate it to stretch that out, I think you can get better stories, and that's how you build interest, and that's how you grow an audience, because you want to see what's coming next, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so next up, we get an ad for the Next in Your House, which would end up being Beware of the Dog. And they've already announced matches. It's going to be Vader and Yokozuna, Mark Merrow and Triple H, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Savio Vega. And then they show some footage of Triple H attacking Merrow after his match in the during the free for all. Earlier in the night, you had British Bulldog trying to get into Shawn Michaels' dressing room, which would set up their match because he thought Shawn Michaels wanted to sleep with his wife. And that sets up their match at Beware of the Dog the next month, which is another interesting pay-per-view that's been covered a lot over the years by more famous podcasts. But it's time for our main event, and it's Shawn Michaels against Diesel in a no-holds-barred match for the WWF Championship. And this is also going to be Diesel's last match on TV in WWE, same as Razor Ramon. So they came into WCW together, and they came out of WWE together on the same night, obviously with the aforementioned curtain call in May. But this all started back in March, about a week before WrestleMania, at another house show at Madison Square Garden, where Diesel would hit Shawn Michaels with the chair during their match against Bret Hart and The Undertaker. The night after WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels has his celebratory promo with the title belt, and cues the title of the pay-per-view, says they make good friends but better enemies. And then the next week on Raw, Shawn Michaels would face Jerry Lawler in a 9-title match. Diesel would be on commentary with McMahon and Mr. Perfect, and Diesel would lay out Shawn with the belt on that show to end the show and stand over him. And they would exchange barbs for the next couple weeks, and we're ready to go. And it's a decent hype video covering their relationship before this match. Am I right? I really enjoyed that.
I did think it was a pretty good hype video, really before hype videos became a thing. They weren't quite there yet, but for what it was, I thought it really told the story of what was going to go on.
Yeah, I thought it was good. You got Todd Pettengill, New York radio legend, talking over the video package, and it's a very somber one because it's about their friendship basically breaking up. So what I thought was interesting about this one when the match got started was it was a very rare entrance by Shawn Michaels. He had this Eye of the Tiger type entrance, just made a beeline toward the ring. No dancing, no pyro, no posing, no flexing. It was just very unique for him. And he just jumps right in the ring and starts throwing haymakers at Diesel. Doesn't even take his chaps off. So I thought that was something different. We didn't see that a lot out of Shawn in those days. He was, right?
No, he did a good job of selling that his friend turned on him, and they were just pissed, and it was time to truly go to war.
And they did go to war because Diesel would try to kill him by hanging him from the ropes. What was that?
It doesn't age well.
It does not. It certainly does not. That was rough. And then you get the really kind of big spot, if you will, in the match is Diesel jackknife power bombs HBK through the announce table. Doesn't take the monitors off. This is before the announce tables how they are now. It was basically just a regular folding table, and they had all the monitors on there, and he just slams him through, and all the monitors kind of collapse on him. That was harsh, and Vince McMahon's yelling at Shawn to quit and just let it be over. And I know we talked in our Austin versus Rock episode a few weeks back, which you can check out on our archives on iTunes, how JR was the cheerleader for Stone Cold Steve Austin. And in this match, it was like Vince McMahon was the over-the-top cheerleader for Shawn Michaels. Did you catch that?
I did, but I also caught something else. and I was going to bring it up later, but since you're talking commentary, I'm going to bring it up now. Was Jerry Lawler trolling Vince McMahon with the consistent talks about the Click? Did you catch all of them? Like, they just didn't stop.
Yeah, no, I caught it. I caught a lot of them, yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what purpose it was serving. It was almost like he was trying to get a reaction out of McMahon, and he never got it. But I thought it was interesting. Another one of those, they're kind of tipping the hand without people catching it. And nowadays, because everybody knows about the Click incident, that people are noticing and taking aside on whether they agreed with the curtain call or not. And here you are talking about the Click, which, I mean, at that time, I don't think I knew what that was.
I just thought that was Shawn Michaels fans.
Yeah. It was very interesting.
Like the Jerichoholics or anything like any of those Hulkamaniacs. I thought that's what he called his fans back then. I didn't realize until much later that it was their crew, like the guys they ran with backstage. Like, who knew that?
Not I.
Yeah, exactly. And but this match is really, really good. Another case of not killing a guy that you know is leaving. I thought Diesel looked like Diesel in this match. He was just a monster. And you believe that he really wanted to destroy Shawn Michaels and destroy his legacy and prove that he was better than him. And, but the finish is mind-boggling. For some reason, Mad Dog Vachon's in the audience, and then you figure out why, because Diesel pulls him out of the crowd and steals his prosthetic leg off of his person.
So when I see Mad Dog Vachon in the crowd, I'm like, is this the event where they use his leg as a weapon? And then, because you're like, why are they showing Mad Dog Vachon? Like, dude's a legend, but, like, what's going on here? And then I remembered that in one major event, they used it as a weapon, and sure enough, here it was. And, some of my favorite stuff with it is when Shawn Michaels is tuning up the band with the prosthetic leg. I almost lost it. I almost, when I tweeted out that we were about to record, I almost went, microphone prosthetic leg, but I didn't think it would age well. But I really thought about it.
Yeah, it was interesting, I guess, and that's the theme throughout this. This is a transitional period in wrestling, and we haven't reached that peak yet we're not in the Attitude Era yet by far, and this is kind of, when you look at what's going on in ECW right now, they're starting to take off, and people are noticing. Obviously, we're only a few months away from Mind Games, where ECW was there in the crowd, and they had that whole thing spark off. So it's kind of interesting that they go with a little bit more of like this hardcore style, shocking ending to this match, and as Diesel went to whack HBK with it, Michaels hits him with the low blow, grabs the leg from him, clicks his heels of the dirt like a baseball player, winds up and takes a home run swing at Diesel's head, and then tunes up the band for Sweet Chin Music. Now, the one thing I did notice about this, and during my research on this match, I went back and read some articles and things like that, and whatever I could find, and how certain wrestling writers were critical of the crowd, how the crowd reacted to Shawn Michaels compared to some of the other people like The Undertaker or Ultimate Warrior. He didn't get as big. He wasn't as popular. Didn't get as big a reaction. Fine. When he's tuning up the band in this match, everybody in the first 10 rows that you could see is doing it with him. It really, and I just, it's amazing to me that we can have this kind of bias and agenda, but not actually look at what's going on. Because you see their heads bopping and you see them moving themselves. They're all on their feet. How does that mean that he's not a popular wrestler? Or
Yeah, I don't know.
he's
I thought the
over?
same thing. I I was really confused as to why he was considered at that time a bad champion. That he didn't put, didn't fill arenas. I thought there is a huge contingent of fans that loved Shawn Michaels at the time.
And I get it. Like I'm transparency is a big part of what we do here on DDT Archives, and I'm proud of that. I'm not. I will admit that Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler of all time, but I'm not blind enough to admit that in this time period, until he came back in 2002, he's a terrible babyface.
Yeah, he's awful as a good guy.
He's bad, and that's why I think when I want to bridge this to the now, it's very similar to Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins will give you a good match every night, great match every night. He's not good at being a babyface. It just doesn't suit him. Shawn Michaels is the same way, and so I think that's maybe the disconnect between his quote unquote popularity. He just doesn't translate well as a good guy. He's just an arrogant jackass. It just works better as a heel to me. So maybe that was it. But we'll never know. Looking back, it's 24 years ago.
I mean, but you think about it. Like, there's a backstage segment where the Bulldog is trying to get into Shawn Michaels' locker room because Shawn Michaels was with the dude's wife.
Yeah.
Like, on what planet is the dude that's taking somebody's wife a good guy? Like, just think about that for a minute. This isn't the Attitude Era. Like, this is the original Mr. Steal Your Girl, and that's your babyface?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a lot of very confusing. Very confusing. But any final thoughts on the main event before we wrap this puppy up?
Listen, I thought for what it was and In Your House, I thought it was a really solid pay-per-view, and I enjoyed doing the show.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, and I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it. It really was like, it was a decent poker hand, but you were like one card short. Like, you had like maybe 3 aces, but somebody else had a full house. Like, you were one match short of this being an absolute classic, because for the 4 matches that real legit matches that you had, those were all good. And then you obviously have the throwaway with the Warrior and Goldust that just kind of kept it from being a real memorable one. But like I said, this is a hidden gem. There's a lot going on in the industry. If you are fans of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, just to see their last televised matches, which are 2 really good matches before they leave for WCW, this is a good pay-per-view to check out. And it won't kill your day either. It's 1 hour and 43 minutes. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. You get a good show, and in half the time of the Monday Night Raw that is airing as we record. And so when you think about it, it's probably worth your time, especially in a time of quarantine and stay-at-home orders. And if you have an extra hour and 45 minutes, this is definitely a solid show to help you pass the time. And I hope you check it out from checking it out with us. So, yeah, man, let's hit our spots here. Like as always, you can follow us on Twitter at DDT Archives. Chris, why don't you give your Twitter handle out?
It's at Chris_DDTHSLB. We're crushing that Twitter game right now, and we're going to continue to push it and take this to the next level. I can't wait to see what's in store for the archives.
Absolutely. And if you want to reach out to us, anybody, any questions, comments, if you want to reach out to us on Twitter, you can do that. Our email address is ddtarchives@gmail.com. You can hit us there. And you find all our shows on iTunes, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. Just make sure you subscribe and rate us. Give us a great rating. Help the brothers out. And I really enjoyed this one, and I hope you did too. And we'll see you next time on the DDT Archives.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.